Welcome to this week's edition of Talk of the Nation. I'm JT, and we have a great show lined up for you tonight. Supermodel Josephine Skriver will join us, along with Patriots legend Willie McGinest. So let's begin with Jason Fitz of ESPN. And Jason, you know Vegas, you know this town. What a huge night in this city. What was the response around the community?
I mean, the crazy thing about it all for me, JT, I grew up as a little kid in Vegas, right down from Meadows Mall. And so to look at this city and see a city that I have so much love for, city that I still have a lot of family in, to see them sort of shine in that moment, it's such a transcendent opportunity because, look, the Golden Knights have already proven that they can sustain as a franchise. The Aces are doing great work in the WNBA, but becoming a professional football town is a different leap for any city. And I think one of the undertold stories here is the last time we saw a new city get football in the NFL was a long time. I mean, you're talking the Titans and the Panthers and the Jags for cities that hadn't had professional football in the past. You think about what that means for a city. It propels things. We already know that Vegas is the entertainment capital, but to put them on the map with this sort of a stadium, this sort of a team, and this sort of an opportunity, it was a moment seized, and it was incredibly heartwarming, special for me, not just as a Raiders fan, but as a Vegas fan.
Yeah, and on a national stage, there's been a buzz about Allegiant Stadium. In Vegas, it seems like we didn't disappoint.
No, not at all. And look, it's beautiful. I talked a lot to Louis Riddick before the broadcast, and we sort of laughed. And, I had the opportunity a few years ago, JT, to go in and play the national anthem on fiddle before the Raiders game out in Oakland. And those fans are incredible, and they're incredible people. But we can all look at it and say, as much charm as there was to that stadium, it's not the new of the new, the best of the best. This new facility is the new of the new. It is the best of the best. And, I've even talked to players and former players that will admit that in college football, you see so much of the recruiting revolves around the facilities. That's seeped into the NFL too. These facilities, not just the stadium, but even the practice facility, I think really stunned a lot of the people nationally that were getting their first look at it. You see what it means for this city and what it means for this team. I think it's going to help make it an even bigger draw above and beyond everything else for free agents that are looking for opportunities to play somewhere.
Let's talk about team confidence. Stacking early wins. A 2-0 start is imperative for this franchise, and they got off to that quick start.
Yeah, it's not just a 2-0 win either. It's also the added element, the oversimplified truth that a coach told me a few years ago is good teams find a way to win, bad teams find a way to lose. How many fans of the Raiders for years? I mean, I'm 43, JT. I've been a fan of the Raiders since I was born, right? We've seen so many years where these sorts of games turn into losses. That was the exact opposite. They found a way to hang on and win against Carolina. And then they went in, and not only did they beat the Saints, the Raiders were the better team than the Saints. And I can't say that loud enough because it surprised me. I didn't expect them to be as dominant as they were in that moment. I thought Coach Gruden had an incredible game plan. You go back and you rewatch it. It was a really assertive, dominant win. And for a team that is very young, I think when you start stacking these wins, you stack confidence. And in a very unusual 2020, that's going to matter. I think it even plays into coming in against the Patriots this weekend.
You grew up a Raiders fan. That's amazing. What does the Raider Nation mean to you right now?
It's the most surreal thing. When I was a little kid in Vegas, my dad's a big Raiders fan, and his rule, I was a violin kid growing up, and his rule, I practiced 8 hours a day, and his rule was never on Sundays because that's the time he sits back and watches the Raiders. So we used to sit down, eat a dozen donuts together, and watch the Raiders. And there's this family vibe to the Raiders for me. And then I started to tour, and when I started having success in music, one of the things that really surprised me is wherever we were in the world. I mean, I was in Norway sitting at a coffee shop, and I had a guy come up to me and high-five me because I was wearing a Raiders shirt. And you think about what that camaraderie means, what that family means. It's real. And I know that Raider Nation sometimes gets divided and heated about things like Derek Carr, and it sort of makes me laugh. But it's like a family. You love each other. You fight with each other. There's a bond that is international wherever I've been. You're just wearing a shirt, and suddenly you feel like somebody's your best friend because they're wearing the same logo, the same shield. That's my whole life. And it's part of why I'm so proud of this moment because Raiders fans, man, just knowing what this moment for Las Vegas and this stadium means and how proud we can be of the way this team's being covered right now for a bunch of guys that are easy to root for and easy to sort of feel proud of. There's a camaraderie to all of it that's really surreal.
Now, we both talked on our radio shows about expanded playoffs in baseball. There's an extra wild card team in the NFL. I think that is huge this year, and it could have a big impact on the silver and black.
Yeah, absolutely. Because look, when we came into the season, I was asked to make my predictions. I picked the Raiders as a playoff team because of that extra playoff spot, honestly. I mean, this is a team that felt like coming into the year, if everything could click, they could get themselves to that 9-7, 10-6 mark. But really, 9-7 is sort of where I slotted them, JT. And then you start looking at getting the sneaky win against New Orleans I didn't see coming. And you start to think about confidence. If the team can stay healthy, and I know that's a big if right now, we're all aware of the injuries that are mounting, but they've found a way so far to persevere through them. So, I think when you look at the expanded playoffs, it's time to acknowledge that the playoffs are an expectation for this silver and black team, and they should be, and that's even more exciting for everybody.
You nailed it on the injuries all over the league. What do you think's the biggest NFL storyline heading into week 3?
It is the health and safety of players. I mean, when you start talking about ESPN.com running an article last week that ranked the 21 most significant injuries of week 2, 21. You start thinking about the brands of players that are hurt. And we're not just talking about players. You're talking about Madden cover type players when you look across the league. That's significant. The team that manages to stay the most responsible with COVID-19 and then stay the healthiest is going to be significant. I already thought, though, coming into the year that this is the type of year that tests your front office. Depth is going to be there. Can they find the right players to plug and play? And that's going to be the real challenge for Mike Mayock, frankly. And it's a challenge that I think he's up to. But realistically, you're talking about guys got to get themselves in football shape. But with the limitations in the way they can practice right now, that's not an easy proposition. So I think it's going to take the first 6 weeks or so before guys really get into that shape. So every week, fans should be really concerned about little tweaks that can become bigger issues as the season goes on. Great job, Jason. Supermodel Josephine Skriver joins us next as we continue on Talk of the Nation. Talk of the Nation is presented by Allegiant, the official airline of the Las Vegas Raiders. Cox Business, proud partner of the Las Vegas Raiders. Coors Light, an official beer of Raider Nation, made to chill. San Manuel Casino, official Southern California casino of Allegiant Stadium.
The torch is so pretty. Honestly, if you get a good group, you just pick a few cars at your tailgate and then you just park and you walk out.
How big Lester is. He's just like,
I am just going to take up space.
A lot of times concerts too nowadays are doing like the center of the floor, different layouts. So this is even closer to that if it's halfway there.
Welcome back to Talk of the Nation. We're joined by Supermodel Josephine Skriver. And Joe, you got a tour of Allegiant Stadium during construction. What was that walkthrough like for you, and how did it look when you watched it on Monday Night Football?
Oh my God, getting it through construction and just seeing that they were building a stadium for us, and that whole feeling of like, oh my God, we're getting like a proper, like full-on home. I don't think Oakland is ever going to leave the Raider Nation. I don't think that's possible, because I think we're just bringing that spirit with us. And I think you could really see that. But it was weird. It was weird. I mean, you saw the skeleton of it was just, there was no roof. There was barely seats when I was there. There was just, platforms where you could put seats. So I definitely got to see it when it was very bare and very raw, but it was really cool to see it then transform on live TV and just be like, oh my God, this is what they turned that into. And I was just mind blown. I felt it happened really fast too.
How did you come to know Raider Nation, and what is it about this team that gravitates you to the silver and black?
Well, honestly, I am marrying into a third-generation Raider fan. So on my first day with my fiance, he was like, hey, football. Okay, so it's Raider Nation and not dating. And I was like, what is this thing you're talking about? I was a blank slate because I grew up in Europe. And he just introduced me to my favorite fan base I've ever been part of. We watched every 30 for 30. He showed me old games, old players, and we just went through the history. And I think what really made me a Raider fan was going to tailgate, meeting the other fans of the nation and just how embracing of a culture it is. And just, you can't help but fall in love. You become one big family the second you step on that parking lot.
Now, you travel often in the modeling industry. You've watched games all over the world. Tell me about the global Raider Nation when you're in Europe and you're traveling around the world.
That's another thing. You will see that Raider logo anywhere you go. And I mean, it's also a fashion, so sometimes I'll catch myself like yelling Raiders, and people are like, why are you doing that? I'm like, you're wearing the hat. Do you not understand what this means? But I think at the end of the day, it's one of the most global fan bases, and it's so cool, especially every time we showed up in London, to see how far and wide the Raider Nation are willing to travel for this team.
Well, you've traveled to a lot of games. Give us your favorite Raider game memory.
Ooh. Even my first games, but I think Monday Night Football last year was very much of a highlight. I finally have, I would say, a really large group in the fan base that we all know each other, and it was just such a special, such a special moment in life. And I don't know if I've ever walked into a Raider game this confident of winning, just feeling that vibe and feeling that energy, and just tailgating. Those are some of my favorite parts, and of course,
let's give a shout out to your cat.
London last year too was a highlight like nothing else. The highs after that game was just insane because I got to bring my family from Europe.
Let's give a shout out to your cat. Is your cat a Raider fan behind you?
Yeah, but actually we have a gray and a white cat. We made sure that it was, silver and black, kind of that whole keeping it with the color scheme.
Let's jump into fantasy football. I know you have a fantasy team. How into fantasy football are you, and how's your team doing after 2 weeks?
Not as good as the Raiders. I am 1-1, but we're doing pretty good. Thank God to Jacobs. He has saved me more than a lot. I think he's the main reason that I am winning my games currently. So keep playing.
Joe, we've started off 2-0. Where do you think the team is heading this season?
Really, really, really good gut feeling. Now that we're 2-0 and, this weekend, I think we're walking into a game with a confidence, and I could really see us go all the way. But I'm also a very optimistic Raider fan every season.
Well, the Raider Nation is happy to have you. You're a super fan. When we come back on Talk of the Nation, one of the greatest Patriots of all time, Willie McGinest, joins us on Talk of the Nation. This segment has been brought to you by Modelo, setting the gold standard for authentic Mexican beer since 1925. Welcome back to Talk of the Nation, one of the greatest Patriots of all time, an analyst for NFL Network. Willie McGinest joins us. And Willie, I want to jump in on this rivalry. I actually think it's a bit underrated because the Patriots and Raiders don't play in the same division, but in the same conference. This rivalry has amazing history. Tell me about your history in it.
Well, of course, I have the famous history of the tuck rule when we're playing in the playoff game, and it happened in the snow and all the things that took place. Actually, my very first time finding out what the tuck rule was actually about. Never heard of it ever before in my life until that particular game. But of course, that became famous. And from then on, man, that's where I would say the Patriots dynasty kind of began after that first Super Bowl.
You've had an unbelievable career. Now as an analyst, I want to go back to Bill Belichick. I have no problem saying he's the greatest coach right now of all time. Looking back on your career, tell us about the relationship you had with Coach Belichick.
I had a great relationship. Bill is one of the smartest men I've ever met. He had a plan when he came in and took the team over, and he knew what type of guys he wanted, physical, smart, guys with strong mentalities that were team over individualism, and what type of character guys he wanted to build. So when he came in, he kept a nucleus of guys, and he started to draft and get free agents to fit the mold. His attention to detail, his preparation, the things that you focus on, the blueprint that he set up for that team and that organization is second to none.
Well, Cam Newton's off to a very good start, and it seems like there were multiple teams that could have took a shot at him. Why the Patriots? Why is this such a good fit?
I think for Cam, man, it's a great environment. When you go somewhere and they're going to utilize your skill set, it has to be a good fit. His personality over the years is, his ego and his character. He's an MVP, And a lot comes with that. A lot of pressure comes with that. He's been outspoken about himself, and he's been one of the better players in the league. He's had injuries, and they've been able to deal with that. But I would say with the Patriots is he's going to have guidance. He's going to have a blueprint. He's going to understand that everybody's treated the same there. They're going to demand a certain level of execution and work ethic and all that from him. But, from what I heard, everything that I've heard, he's come in the building, and he's been the leader at the work ethic and being early and putting in the work and doing all the things that was built years and years ago. So the fit with him going to New England was seamless. As far as him having success, I think that Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick and, the staff, they understand what he's done over the years because he has a winning record against the Patriots. They played against him enough times to know how to utilize his skill set and put him in position. And what I saw last week, I know it was a loss. It was a close game. But what I saw last week was another facet of his game open back up, the passing game. And, he showed me some stuff, throwing the ball down the field accurately, putting it in tight windows, going through his progressions, really comfortable in the pocket, his movement in the pocket. So we've seen a smidget of what Cam Newton is going to do in the last couple of weeks. I just think they're going to continue to build week in and week out.
Willie, we got a pretty good quarterback out here in Derek Carr.
Yes.
Assess what you saw on Monday Night Football and his career overall. Where is he in his career? He's coming into his prime right now. Where do you see Derek Carr?
I mean, you said it. He's coming to his prime. He's had some early success, and then he had injuries. And then it was a little inconsistent for a while, but I think he's right at his prime. And what I saw the other night was him just dealing. He was just dealing, man. He was letting the ball go. He was confident. He looked strong. His arm looked live. He was putting the ball in great places for his receivers to make plays. The ability to attack a defense and know where to go with the football and understand what they're trying to do to you is special. And Derek has that ability. And I think with Gruden and him together and him understanding the system and being more comfortable, it just makes it easier for him to see things. And he was just picking the defense apart, just making plays, and going where he needed to go with the ball. One thing for a quarterback to do is know his job. The other thing that I think is really, really tough for quarterback is to understand what the defense is showing you because they disguise and move so much, but also what they're trying to do to you and where do you need to go to the ball. And that can change in an instant because of all the movement. So I thought he did a great job of seeing the field, putting the ball accurately down the field, calling those plays. If he has the latitude to change those plays, and picking that defense apart. I thought he did a great job.
Willie, finally, the social justice movement that we're all living in, how has this personally affected you?
Well, I grew up in Long Beach, California in the inner city. So you see the sweatshirt I'm wearing, it's about voting, being the change. And I think that some of the things that's happened in our country is disgusting. And, for those who don't or have not been through it or understand it, they've seen it live on television. So to have empathy and to sympathize what's going on and the systematic racism that's happening, it's a shame. And I think for people that really, really want change and really want to be that change, we can march, we can protest, we can do all those things, but we have to make significant change. And I think that we have to go out and we have to vote. We have to go out locally and vote and change what we want change. And if we don't, then some of the things that we're doing is not going to correlate to change in our system. So it's not ideal and it's sad. And like I said, it's disgusting, some of the things that are happening, especially in 2020 in today's time. But I think we have a lot of people with major influence that have huge platforms in sports and entertainment that are not going for it anymore. They demand change. And they're using their voices, they're using their platforms to motivate and get people to see and to trigger people to go out and do something positive about it. Nothing malicious, nothing stupid, but something positive about it. And one of those things that we can do is we can go out and vote because it's crucial, it's time. And I think this is so important just because of what this country is going through.
We greatly appreciate your time, Willie. Thank you. When we come back, we'll wrap up this week's edition of Talk of the Nation. This segment has been brought to you by Coors Light, an official beer of Raider Nation. made to chill. Welcome back to Talk of the Nation, and this truly was an epic week in Las Vegas and throughout the Raider Nation. Opening up the stadium with a dominant victory, John Gruden and his staff did a masterful job in the final 3 quarters of that game to win that game, and they deserve a lot of credit, especially on the 50th anniversary of Monday Night Football. But my biggest takeaway was Mrs. Davis lighting the torch in memory of her husband, Al Davis. It was beautiful. From sitting in the booth and in the press box, everyone looking down, to know that that was on ESPN, ABC, Monday Night Football. It was a magical moment in Raider history. I was so happy for Mrs. Davis. And now the game. You got momentum. The Silver and Black are 2-0, and they go to Foxborough to take on Bill Belichick. There's no Tom Brady this time around. It's Cam Newton. And Cam can run, and he's off to a really good start. There is deep history with these two franchises, and the Raiders have payback as they're out there now trying to get a win here. If the Raiders could go to 3-0, you'll hear the entire national media talking about the Silver and Black, and the momentum will continue to build. I talked to John Gruden earlier in the week. It's next man up. The depth of this team is being tested early, so they got to come in focused and ready to play. Because, again, we're talking about an AFC opponent, and the Raiders really have momentum as they beat Drew Brees in New Orleans. That is a great win, and we'll remember that victory because of Las Vegas, Monday Night Football, and the first win in the history of Las Vegas. Next week on Talk of the Nation, we'll get you ready for the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo is coming to town, and they're a team that's also playing well. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Talk of the Nation.